Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. As you probably know, I'm a big fan of miniature skirmish games, and way back in 2019 I spoke about one of the skirmish games from my collection of older out-of-production games called Transformers Armada Battle for Cybertron. That game was a re-implementation of a much-loved game called Star Wars Epic Duels, only a more streamlined, condensed version. In my video about Transformers Armada, I mentioned a forthcoming re-implementation of the game called Unmatched from Rob Daviau, who had previously worked on Epic Duels and is well known for his involvement with Hasbro and restoration games on many incredibly popular titles. Unmatched would take the same core engine from the previous two games, but modernise it and add a cool new twist by creating battles between mismatched characters from history and literature. It was a game I was seriously interested in for a while, but which gradually fell by the wayside as other games vied for my attention. Well, we can fast forward to 2023. Unmatched is now a well-established game series with a lot of different sets available. Each of those sets is a game in its own right, playable straight out of the box, but the real joy is that each set contains characters, usually 2 or 4, that you can pit against the characters from any other set. Want to see Robin Hood fight the T-Rex from Jurassic Park? You can. Want Dracula to hunt down Beowulf? That's possible too. And finally, at last, I have here in my possession one of the Unmatched sets, Robin Hood vs Bigfoot, which I picked up in a game store when it was on sale. This is one of the smaller 2-packs you can get, which serves as a decent introduction to the game or as an expansion for extending your Unmatched experience. Today we're going to talk about the core gameplay mechanisms, but we're also going to discuss Robin Hood and Bigfoot in a little more detail. First of all, before we open the box, can we just take a moment to enjoy this cover art? It's by Oliver Barrett, who also did all the card art for this set, and it is astonishingly beautiful. When I show you some of the card art, you will see there is a wonderful blend of realistic and abstract elements, combined with a stunning graphic design that I think elevates the whole presentation of the game to the very highest tier. It's bold and brilliant, and I absolutely love it. But anyway, inside the box we have this dinky little double-sided board. Obviously this is an arena for a 2-player game, larger arenas for 4 players are also available. One side of the board is Sherwood Forest and the other side is Bigfoot's Forest, and you will notice they look a bit weird. I have to admit, the boards do take some getting used to. The backgrounds are very nice, but then they have these zoomed in spaces which have distinct colours and patterns, and the result is that the battlefields become quite abstract in nature. However, functionally, I think these maps are excellent. Each circle is a space big enough for one fighter. Adjacent spaces are connected by black lines, which means you can move along the black lines from space to space. But additionally, the boards are divided into zones, and each space exists in one or more of those zones. Any 2 spaces that share a matching colour and pattern are part of the same zone, and spaces that have more than one colour are part of several zones. This is really interesting because it allows the game to employ rules that play with the shape of the battlefield and the various regions. As a simple example, a character can make a melee attack against any adjacent space, meaning there has to be a connecting black line, but a character can make a ranged attack against any space in the same zone. A character with a ranged attack on an intersection of 3 zones has an incredible field of fire and is quite deadly as a result. Lots of special abilities also key into the concept of zones, and it really helps to create an additional layer of strategy in terms of how you place and move your characters, despite the relatively small, simple arenas in which your battles occur. Next up we have the rules book, very clear, really well illustrated. The rules are pretty straightforward anyway, but regardless I found the format here easy to read and digest, and also easy to refer back to when necessary, which admittedly wasn't very often. Finally, we have all the components for our 2 characters, arranged in a really good plastic insert that has a space for everything. You have your character, their sidekicks and their cards. Also underneath the cards, health trackers. I do love a nice health tracker dial. Here's Bigfoot. This is actually a really good miniature, and they've given it a nice wash over the grey to bring out the details. As a result, I have no intention of painting this. You will also notice there is a brown base ring matching the brown colour of Bigfoot's cards and his sidekick. Speaking of his sidekick, Bigfoot gets the Jackalope. This is a nice plastic counter with smooth edges. I think it's screen printed and I'm not sure if the image will start to wear or not, but it seems good quality. Here's Bigfoot's character card. The top portion shows that Bigfoot is a melee fighter and starts with 16 health. The bottom portion shows that the jackalope is a melee fighter and starts with 6 health. The central part of the card shows that Bigfoot and the jackalope have a move of 3 spaces. Finally, the card shows Bigfoot has a special ability that allows him to draw 1 card at the end of the turn if there are no opposing fighters in his zone. Clearly, Bigfoot likes to stay hidden. And I suppose this is a good point to mention every character in this game is different. They have distinctive playstyles derived from the character's personality. Bigfoot here hits incredibly hard but likes to stay hidden, so he has a sort of hit and run style of play. He can travel huge distances, whomp someone, and then blend into the tree line. Meanwhile, his little jackalope friend hares around the board like a homing missile, inflicting damage on anything unfortunate enough to get in the way. Next we have a deck of 30 action cards, all beautifully illustrated. We'll talk more about what these cards do in a moment, but as I flick through them you can see how clearly they are laid out and how dynamic and interesting the artwork is. Finally, Bigfoot gets 2 health trackers, one for him and one for the jackalope. These are really nicely produced, but I feel they are just a bit too easy to turn. If you knock one during a game, it's very easy for it to shift slightly, so it's reading a different value. And here is Robin Hood. This is another very nice miniature, and this time the ring on the base is green to match the green cards and sidekick tokens. Unlike Bigfoot, Robin Hood has a whole team of sidekicks, 4 merry men that can scurry around the board causing problems. His character card shows that he is a ranged fighter, so he can attack adjacent targets or targets anywhere in his zone, and he has a starting health of 13. The bottom part of the card shows he has 4 outlaws, all melee fighters, and each one has only a single health point. 1 hit and they take a dirt nap. Robin and all of the outlaws have a move of 2, and Robin also has a special ability that says if he or any of his outlaws make an attack, that attacking fighter can then move up to 2 spaces. Having a lot of fighters on the board and being able to attack then move plays into Robin's overall strategy of making ranged attacks while using his sidekicks as human shields. He also has access to a lot of action cards that allow him to draw more cards or even to force an opponent to discard cards. It's a very clever way of reflecting how he robs his opponents, reducing their viable options while he grows richer, gaining the resources to make ever more intricate plans. It's all very nicely put together. Oh, and here's Robin's health tracker. Obviously, his outlaws don't get one. In terms of gameplay, this is one of those games that is exceptionally easy to learn or teach, but packs in a tremendous amount of game. You will very easily be able to pick up on the core mechanisms and even identify how you are supposed to play a particular character, but actually translating all of that information into a winning strategy isn't easy. At the start of the game, players set out their heroes and sidekicks on the board and draw a hand of 5 cards. On any given turn, a player must play 2 actions from a choice of 3. They can pick 2 different actions or the same action twice, but they must always pick 2. The first action is the maneuver. When you take this action, you must draw a card. If you have no cards to draw, you take 2 damage instead. While you can have as many cards in your hand during your turn as you can get, at the end of your turn you must discard down to 7. After drawing or taking damage, you may move all of your fighters up to the number of spaces indicated by the move stat on your character card. You can only move between spaces connected by a black line, and you aren't allowed to move through opposing fighters, unless a special rule states otherwise, of course. And I have to say, I love the cleanness of this design. You don't have to worry about rough terrain, or elevation, facing, line of sight. All of that is baked into the design of the board and how it's divided into those different coloured regions. Additionally, adding a little wrinkle to movement is the idea of boosting. Every action card has a boost value on the right. When you take the maneuver action, you may discard 1 card from your hand and add that boost value to your movement stat. This allows you to make sudden leaps, catching your opponent off guard as you clear 5 or 6 spaces in a single bound. Discarding an action card is a heavy price to pay, but sometimes it's worth it. The boost value, incidentally, also comes into play in other ways, most commonly allowing you to boost the value of an attack. The second action you can perform in your turn is scheming. This is very simple. In every deck there are a certain number of scheme cards, indicated by a lightning bolt icon. When you scheme, you select one of your eligible fighters to play a scheme card, and then follow the instructions on that card. You can tell if a fighter is eligible because every card states who can use it. This card, for example, says Jackalope down the left side, so can only be used by Bigfoot's sidekick. while this one says Bigfoot and can only be used by Bigfoot. The final action is the real meat and potatoes of the game: attack. To make an attack, you select one of your fighters to be the active fighter. You then declare the target of the attack, factoring in whether the attack is melee or ranged. Then you select an attack card from your hand and place it face down in front of you. An attack card normally has an explosion icon in the top left corner, but some cards are versatile and can be used in attack or defense, and these have a split explosion and shield icon instead. Either type of card is valid when making an attack as long as the fighter you have selected is eligible, which again means checking for the name of the fighter below the attack icon. This card, for example, is a versatile card that works in attack or defense and which can be played by any fighter on your team. After you have placed your attack card face down, the target fighter has the option of playing a defend card, if they have one. Defend cards have a shield in the top left corner, but you can also use the versatile cards that have this split explosion and shield icon. Again, you also have to check for eligibility. If the fighter defends, they place the card face down on the table. Both players then reveal their cards. Many cards have special effects. If any cards have a special effect that happens immediately, resolve it. Then, if any special effects happen during combat, resolve those. If there are ever two effects that would trigger at the same time, the defender's effect resolves first. Then you compare the damage value on the attack card with the defense value on the defense card. If the attack value is higher, the difference is how many wounds the defender takes. Finally, if there are any special effects that resolve after combat, resolve those and then discard the cards. And that's it. It's very simple, very clean and effortless to play. I taught this game to my 12-year-old daughter in a matter of minutes, and she was able to jump straight in and play with confidence. There is quite a lot of reading as most cards have different effects, but the level of maths is minimal. The devil though is in the details. Each fighter plays so differently, and baked into their designs are fascinating combinations and playstyles. This is a game where you are going to want to play with the same character multiple times to unravel the way the deck plays. You need to learn the strengths and weaknesses, understand which cards you can discard to boost movement and which ones you need to hold onto for just the right moment. And once you've done that, once you've learned how to play the deck, you need to learn how to play your opponent. The system draws on all those classic card play elements. There's card counting as you try to remember how many of their powerful cards your opponent has played. There is bluffing, knowing when your opponent is throwing down a weak attack in hopes of drawing out one of your most powerful defense cards, or knowing that when they have declined to play a defense card isn't because they don't have one, but because they want to hold onto it for another reason. There is pushing your luck, understanding when you need to press an advantage with a second attack and when to ease off and play cat and mouse for a while. And hand management, knowing when to load up on cards even though your deck is finite and at some point you will run out of cards, leading to dramatic, unavoidable health loss. And once you've mastered that, you still have to become skilled in positional play, learning how to use the layout of each map to your advantage, knowing how to create shield walls with your sidekicks, or how to maneuver in ways that let you trigger your special abilities frequently. It's layers and layers of goodness, all wrapped up in a beautiful presentation. As a huge fan of horror, but also cryptids, mythology and folklore, this particular set is very appealing to me. However, I admit I mainly picked it up because it was on sale. But believe me, this game made a huge impact. If I had owned it when I put together my top 50 games videos last year, then it would definitely have appeared somewhere on the list. Of course, now I want more fighters. Next stop is Cobble and Fog, which features Dracula, Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Jekyll and the Invisible Man. It's basically tailor-made for me. But there we have it, that's Unmatched. It took me a long time to get around to it, but I'm glad I did. This embodies so many elements of board games that I love. Exceptional presentation, fantastic art, and fast, streamlined gameplay that's easy to learn, doesn't bog you down in minutai, bookkeeping, or pushing hundreds of different tokens around, yet still gives you more than enough to think about in every game. And who doesn't want to know who would win in a fight between King Arthur and Little Red Riding Hood? This is a winner. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.